Good evening. Welcome to the Baccalaureate service for the class of 2021. Now, normally, we would be in the chapel, squeezed in. Normally, it's a tad hot. And because of the current circumstances, we find ourselves here in the commencement tent. It's cooler, you have a little more space. And while we miss the beauty of the chapel, we know that because of the past 14 months, we have been called to be adaptable, flexible, a little fluid, and that's what you have all been. And as a result, you have accomplished an amazing thing and earned your degree here at Bard. We are so, so proud of you. Now, this past week, I decided, since this was something unusual, not having baccalaureate in the chapel, which of course shows sort of its religious roots, to do a little research on former baccalaureate services here at Bard. And I particularly wanted to see what was going on in also turbulent times. Now, we all know that this college was founded in 1860 when we were on the brink of civil war, when this nation faced a time to end slavery, when our union was questioned. But it was felt that liberal arts, the humanities, education was so valuable that it was a time to begin this college. Interestingly, there are no records of the first baccalaureate service. But I will tell you later on, in 1918, another time when this country was facing World War I, the graduating class consisted of 3 men. The other seniors were already serving in the infantry and the cavalry and in hospitals here and abroad. In 1939, a time when Hitler was about to invade Poland and we were again facing a war, the graduating class consisted of, are you ready for this? 33 men. And their baccalaureate service is one that I would actually like us to go back to. It began with choral evensong. The next morning at 7:30 a.m., Holy Communion. And then a long baccalaureate sermon. I think it sounds delightful, don't you? And all, of course, were expected to be there. The reality is, while we have faced this time, we come from a rich tradition of other times of challenges and obstacles that have stretched our forebears. But what they did was they claimed their space. They claimed their generation in their particular time of history. And that is what you have become part of, that line of graduates who, no matter what, took what they received here at Bard and went out into a world and made a difference. And so I would like to open this baccalaureate with this prayer. So God, we pray you fill these graduates with a sense of purpose as they earn for themselves their place in their particular history. May they go out into the regions beyond Bard with the courage and strength and do wondrous things for the world. May they be valiant seekers after truth and justice. May they cultivate minds to think and hearts to love and hands to serve. May they never stop marveling at the beauty and wonder of your creation in earth, sky, and sea. And finally, bless them in all their endeavors as they continue to grow in their understanding of who they are called to be at this moment in time. Amen. And now I ask that you please stand with our hymn, Ye Watchers and Ye Holy Ones.
I want as well to welcome each and every one of you to all the members of the class of 2021. And indeed, I think I speak for everyone on the faculty and on the staff of the college in saying how proud we are of what this class has accomplished and what a terrific class it is and how it really successfully mastered the tremendous pressures of the pandemic. You won't forget it, and we won't forget you. So a round of applause for the class of 2021. Mary Grace mentioned the history of the Baccalaureate, and it is an old service, and for many of us, the favorite service, because it is without outsiders. It's simply the graduating students, speakers, and members of the faculty and staff. It's a family affair, and therefore it has a kind of intimacy that the big commencement doesn't have. And in times long gone, the degrees were given out at Baccalaureate, not at a second commencement ceremony. It was the commencement ceremony. And we have tried to keep some of the elements, the hymns, in line with the tradition of the college. So every graduating class has had the same experience, baccalaureate and commencement. I want to thank the chaplaincy and also all the members of the staff that made this social distancing, mask-wearing event possible, and the musicians whom you will hear from and you have already heard from. So I want to thank them. Before reading the Old Testament lesson for this ceremony, I want to simply reflect a moment on why this still exists. I think we've come a certain distance from assuming that the secularization of the academy was a natural event. The idea that religion would atrophy and that was something that was once sacred would ultimately become simply secular. This institution became secular much later than its counterparts. Most of the colleges built in the Northeast were founded by sectarian communities. This is no exception. We continue to maintain nominal membership in the Episcopal Church in America. And the Anglican Communion itself was not particularly distinguished by being founded by a charismatic theological conviction. It was a political act, derivative of the many wives of Henry VIII. But ultimately, it had its own very severe theological struggle. And the founding of the Puritan colonies in the Northeast owe their existence to the struggles within the church in England, whether it be Presbyterian or Anglican, and the struggle with Catholicism. John and Margaret Bard, who founded Bard, were devout Episcopalians, rather of the high church variety, closer to Catholicism. And the college was a place of dissent between low church and high church for decades. The president's house was designed to be this big by a high church president, only to be shrunken to a smaller size because the donors who wanted to pay for it didn't like the next president who was too low church. I bring this up because by the period after the Second World War, when women were admitted to Bard, when Bard pulled out of Columbia, because Columbia forbade it to admit women, and the first class of women graduated in 1948. It was a period of increasing secularization. Somehow, religion would disappear. the more reason, more knowledge, religion would become vestigial. We now know that that prediction, particularly cherished by left ideologies, who saw religion, as the famous phrase goes, as the opium of the masses, it has stayed with us and it has flourished. How we deal with that is an open question. And how we deal with faith that some might consider to be irrational is something we have to confront. But one thing we should remember at this service that places the religious origin of this institution in the best of lights. From that religious origin, we learn the sanctity and sacred character of every person on this planet, no matter what their identity, origin, character, way of life may be. Rich or poor, free or incarcerated, on whatever continent. The I believe sense that every individual is divinely indebted and seen before some construct of the divine as being sacred. Every life is sacred, which makes violence against any individual unacceptable. That sacred spring of a place of learning should never be extinguished, because its authority is in belief, not an argument. It's not a conspiracy. It's not discriminatory. It's universal and holy. And if we only once a year remember that our pursuit of knowledge and your pursuit of achievement derives from a sense of the sanctity and sacred character of every human being, if it only happens once a year, it's worth coming out to the Baccalaureate. I will now read the Baccalaureate passage for this day from the Old Testament, from the book of Deuteronomy, the 30th chapter, the 9th to the 14th verse. And the Lord your God will grant you abounding prosperity in all the work of your hands, in the fruit of your womb, in the fruit of your animals, and in the fruit of your land. For the Lord will again delight in your well-being, like the delight once felt in the presence of your ancestors, since you will be listening to the divine voice and keeping the commandments and statutes written in this book of teaching, returning to the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul. Surely this instruction which I enjoin upon you this day is not too baffling for you, nor is it beyond reach. It is not in the heavens that you should say, who among us can go up to the heavens and get it for us and impart it to us that we may observe it? Neither is it beyond the sea that you should say, who among us can cross to the other side of the sea and get it for us and impart it to us that we may observe it? No, the matter is very close to you, in your mouth and in your heart, to do it.
Good afternoon. I'd like to thank the Senior Class Council for the honor of this invitation. In the Lakota language, the calendar is called Wanyetu Wawapi, and it reflects the cycle of time counted from the first snowfall through the winter, through the next new year, until the new snow. It is for this seasonal reason that Wanyetu Wawapi is translated into English as winter count. I love winter counts because they remind me to put historical events into perspective. They remind me that there is a new way to see the world, to understand our past and present, and to think about our future. Winter counts use single images to mark the most important experience of the community or of individuals or families, each image reflecting 1 year and emphasizing interconnectedness between the picture and the interpreter. A Lakota man named Wapastangi produced some of the most well-known among these winter counts during the 19th century. His record of Lakota time began historically with the emergence of the supernatural white buffalo calf woman narrative in the 900s and continued up through his own century. As a child, Wapastangi witnessed one of the extraordinary events that the community selected to represent the year 1834. The most important thing that year for his Lakota community was not Andrew Jackson's presidency or the issue of Indian removal. It was not the Kunming earthquake in China. It was not Britain abolishing slavery in its empire, an act achieved by moral capital and by financially compensating enslavers instead of the enslaved men, women, and children who received nothing but their freedom. In 1834, the most important thing for Wapastangi's Lakota community took place on November 13, when the Leonid meteor shower sent tens of thousands of meteors hurtling across the night sky. Wapastangi's winter count shows the image of a teepee embraced by a halo of stars all around it. And for many Native nations, 1834 remains known as the year the stars fell. Winter counts remind us that we mark the passage of time in different ways, through events and experiences as much as through our calendars. Each of you has had a unique arc of your time at Bard, whether you arrived on the first day of L&T, were transferred in, stayed here, or studied abroad. You are still confronting the coronavirus pandemic that began in 2019. You're living through history and also witnessing a living history as the pandemic continues to unfold. I wondered if my image for this time would be the coronavirus itself, its name derived from its spherical shape and radiating spokes. The image reminds me of loss, but it also reminds me of a different corona. During a solar eclipse in Kinderhook, just a few miles north of here, 19th century Spanish astronomer José Joaquín de Ferrer called the crown of light he saw in the sky a corona. When things seem most bleak, on the most challenging pandemic days, I hold on to these images of impossibly starry skies and the solar corona to remind myself that there is always another way to approach the world, another step to be taken in an ongoing journey of discovery. Back in March 2020, as pandemic lockdowns began, a lot of folks began to look to past quarantines to figure out how people managed to stay connected, creative, and positive. Isaac Newton and Shakespeare emerged as some popular choices of focus. Many reports emphasized that Shakespeare penned some of his most famous works while in lockdown. As an early modern historian, let me remind you that all Shakespeare's works, tragedies, histories, comedies, poems, emerged during the permanent threat of public health disasters. I think this is why my mother always encouraged me to turn to the arts, humanities, and Shakespeare in times of stress. She still loves to quote a combination of Shakespeare and her Ethiopian proverbs to me, Two of her favorites are, "The flies are many on a fallen lion, and this above all, to thine own self be true." Think for yourself. Be able to recognize inequity and understand the roots of where this inequity comes from. Don't be too quick to pass judgment. You have the tools, the choices, and the possibility to define for yourselves who you want to be. I started with Lakota tradition because on Saturday, you will be joining the ranks of our most famous Lakota undergraduate alumnus, Vine Deloria Sr. You may have noticed the sign honoring his legacy on the path to Stevenson Library, and if you didn't, you still have time to read it before commencement. Vine Deloria Sr.'s advocacy for the rights and representation of his community in the face of exclusion and violence aligns with the work of many other Bard alumni and current Bard students, and should make you proud of the lineage you are a part of here. This legacy is echoed in the words of Joy Harjo, Muskogee citizen and US Poet Laureate, who reminds us, remember you are this universe, and this universe is you. Remember all is in motion, is growing, is you. Remember language comes from this. Remember the dance language is, life is. Remember. Remember to be true to yourself. Be true to your passions, of course, but most importantly, be honest when you are speaking to yourself. I emphasize this with you the way my mother emphasized this with me, because I want to see you succeed and to be supported. The internet, our devices, the cloud, these have connected us in unprecedented ways. But we face an ever-increasing echo chamber in our social media choices, with algorithms selecting at lightning speed media and perspectives that confirm our pre-existing beliefs, and that do this with an eye to capitalize on us. So as you go forward, walk in the words of Langston Hughes. Gather out of stardust, earth dust, cloud dust, and splinters of hail, one handful of dream dust, not for sale. Evaluate your own sources. Think for yourselves. Use the truths that you are willing to face in yourself to be able to tell the truths that others need to hear. If you use your truth to expect the best from those around you and to model for others the way to get there, the stars and the dream dust will fall on you and will always light your way. So congratulations, class of 2021, to each and every one of you for the achievements that you have made and the world of possibilities ahead. You have shared your luminosity with us here. Now amplify it and go share it with the world. Congratulations.
A reading from the Quran, Surah 94, Al-Inshirah, the Relief. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. In the name of God, the Lord of mercy, the giver of mercy. Did we not relieve your heart for you, Prophet, peace be upon him, and remove the burden that weighed so heavily on your back, and raise your reputation high? So truly, where there is hardship, there is also ease. Truly, where there is hardship, there is also ease. The moment you are freed of one task, work on. And turn to your Lord for everything. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone, and congratulations to the class of 2021. While this is certainly not your typical Bard commencement weekend, when the tent is packed full with your friends and family, when we have senior dinner, and of course, when we have the event we've all been looking forward to for years, the tent party. Instead, we're sitting under this tent, 6 feet apart, hand sanitizer readily available, and our loved ones are live streaming us from home. I am so honored to be with all of you today. 4 years ago, if you would have told me that I was still at Bard, let alone speaking in front of the senior class, I would have laughed. I wasn't sure Bard was the right fit for me, and looking back now, I'm still not sure it was. As my senior year comes to an end, I've been thinking a lot about the things Bard has taught me. I've learned that I can never forget to fill my water bottle before going up to my dorm for the night. I'll be parched. I've learned that writing a sproj without a library is very, very difficult. I've also learned that after 4 years, walking up to class on the 3rd floor of Oland will knock the wind out of you every single time. Just take the elevator. I've also learned what Bard's motto, "A place to think," really means to me. I remember always telling my friends and family, of course Bard's a place to think. There's not much else I can do in Annandale without a car. But I slowly began to realize in conversations outside of Bard, Bard is a place that taught me how to think. Discussions in the classroom never ended there, and I found myself reflecting on what I learned in class each day with my roommates and friends for hours over meals in my suite and FaceTime calls into the early hours of the morning. During my first years at Bard, I remember seeing my peers and friend groups immediately begin to I remember seeing my peers form friend groups immediately and begin to experience college in a way I had only seen in movies. while I was sitting in the corner of the library figuring out what my financial aid package meant and whether or not I had filled out my FAFSA properly. I was talking to my mom on the phone about our family business and was constantly looking for jobs and internships. I couldn't help but feel isolated, even when I was sitting amongst groups of people. While I couldn't quite put my finger on it then, I know now that I was navigating a PWI as a first-generation American alone, and to an extent, the feeling of isolation would always linger. At some point, though, the conversations my friends and I were having about what we learned in class turned into reflecting on our experiences at Bard, experiences that were shared and experiences that were not shared. One day, I found myself in the president's room in New Klein with mainly strangers talking about buying textbooks and sharing our tips and tricks for finding them for cheaper. This brought me to join the Scale Project. I found myself finally sharing the things with people that kept me in the corner of the library for months, and for the first time, I began to feel a sense of belonging and knew my experiences weren't isolated. If you know me, you know I hold very strong opinions, and I often refuse to back down until I've heard a good enough argument to change my mind. But it wasn't always like that. For a long time, I felt like my opinions and experiences would have to go unheard and pushed aside because I felt obligated to solely be thankful. Thankful for my scholarship, thankful for an education, the opportunities, the list goes on. How could I ever share my discontents? This brings me to the next thing I've learned from Bard. It's okay not to be happy with how things are, and it's okay to challenge them. And I know that because a place like Bard wasn't necessarily made for a person like me. But Bard has been challenging norms since its very inception, and this is when I realized that I could share my very strong opinions, and sometimes people are willing to listen. I was so used to keeping my head down and telling myself I had to be thankful, I had no idea what it would be like if people heard what I had to say. I had no idea that speaking up not only for myself, but others, could be a vehicle for change. It was moments like this that pushed my boundaries and determined what I wanted to advocate for. This is all to say, college was not a walk in the park for me, as I'm sure it wasn't for many of you. But Bard has taught me a lot of things. Above all, it's taught me we should challenge the norm, and after we walk across this stage on Saturday, we should remember that the classroom was never constrained by the 3 floors of Olin. Thank you.
A reading from Paul's letter to the Romans. I consider that the sufferings of this present time are not worth comparing with the glory about to be revealed to us. For creation waits with eager longing for the revealing of the children of God. For the creation was subjected to futility, not of its own will, but by the will of the one who subjected it, in hope that the creation itself will be set free from bondage to decay and will obtain the freedom of the glory of the children of God. We know that the whole creation has been groaning in labor pains until now, and not only the creation, but we ourselves, who have the first fruits of the Spirit, groan inwardly while we wait for adoption, the redemption of our bodies. For in hope we were saved. Now hope that is seen is not hope, for who hopes for what is seen? But if we hope for what we do not see, we wait for it with patience. Likewise, the Spirit helps us in our weakness, for we do not know how to pray as we ought, but that the very Spirit intercedes with sighs too deep for words. And God, who searches the heart, knows what is the mind of the Spirit, because the Spirit intercedes for the saints according to the will of God.
Good afternoon, everyone. And let me begin by saying that it's truly an honor to be here today, to be able to share in this year's commencement with the class of 2021. My name is Daiwan Tatro. I'm an alumnus of the Bard Prison Initiative and Bard College class of 2018. I didn't write anything today because I thought the most powerful thing for me to do would be able to reflect with you on the meaning and the value of what this education, a Bard College education, has meant to my life. Less than 4 years ago, I was sitting in a prison cell. I was a student of the Bard Prison Initiative. I was released from prison on August 10th, 2017. 2 weeks later, with the help of BPI, I began taking higher level math courses to complete my Bard degree in New York City. The following semester, I completed my senior project. And I remember those days, and I'm sure many of you have shared them, when I struggled to write that project. And one day I called my advisor, Professor Tibbetts, and I said, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to finish. And he said to me, Daiwan, you're a remarkable student. There is nothing that you are going to write that is going to disappoint me. And I sat down and I began to write. And I finished that senior project, and I finished that degree, and I walked across this stage in 2018, and the president of this college handed me that degree, just like many of you will receive from him on Saturday. On Saturday, I will be moving to Washington, D.C. to begin the next stage in my career, in my work in politics. And I am moving to Washington, D.C. to work in politics at a divisive political moment in this country. But I come to that work with a great deal of humility, because my work in politics to date has been on behalf of others and on behalf of the Bard Prison Initiative. I began as a government affairs officer about 2 years ago. And the first thing I set out to do was to raise public funding for our work in New York City. And I achieved that. The next thing I set out to do was to raise public funding from our work from New York State. And this year, I achieved that. But the thing I'm most proud to do with BPI is that I've had a bill that passed in New York this year, and it's sitting on the governor's desk, and I expect him to sign it. And it's going to add college and prison to the merit board eligibility criteria. As it now stands in New York State, you can be released from prison early for earning a GED, for spending 400 hours on a work crew, raking leaves, shoveling snow, for earning a 6-month prison vocational certificate that is non-transferable to the job market, but not for earning a college degree. And I changed that. And it's going to impact the lives of hundreds of other men and women who are incarcerated, working on educations, who are going to have one less obstacle in their way. And so, in doing all of that, I was given the opportunity by Max Kenner, and I think about the moment that Professor Tibbetts said to me, Daiwan, there's nothing that you're going to write that is going to disappoint me. You are a great student. Because it is one thing to have confidence in yourself, it is another thing for others to have confidence in you. And this college has invested a great deal of confidence in students like me. in students like you all who have found your place, your home, your sense of belonging here. And I think I'll end by saying that I sat on the phone for an hour 2 days ago with the Secretary of Education. People like me who grow up in poverty, who spend 12 years in prison, do not get on the phone with the Secretary of Education to discuss the expansion of college and prison nationally. And I was not on that phone with him because I'm an exceptional person. There are people who think that. I meet people every day, and they say to me, wow, you've been to prison? Like, I would have never thought that. Are you joking with me? And they think it's a compliment. And it's not. Because what they're saying to me, and what they're really saying to me, is that they believe the stigmas, the stereotypes, the caricatures of people like me, and that who I am runs counter to their perceptions. But I wasn't on that call because I'm an exceptional person. I was on that call because I had an exceptional opportunity. And I think every one of you have been given an exceptional opportunity in earning a degree from this college. And so I implore you, as you go out into the world, as you walk across this stage on Saturday, as I will be moving to DC in the next phase of my career, to think about the way in which you're going to use this education to make the lives of other people better. Bard College has empowered me to do that. And it has empowered you to do that. It empowered Max Kenner to found the Bard Prison Initiative. And so, you are all beginning a journey, and on Saturday that journey begins. And use this education, this privilege, this experience, what we share in this very, very special place to make a difference in the world. Thank you.
I'm reading from the book Mindful of Race, Transforming Racism from the Inside Out by Ruth King. So this is a special day for you. I congratulate you. So be proud of yourself. Feel your body, feel your heart, your mind. And this is a kindness meditation. Kindness to yourself. May you be safe from inner and outer harm. May you be healthy and strong. May you be happy and content. May you live with ease and well-being. May whatever blocks your heart be dissolved. May you know joy and freedom. May you have food, shelter, and good care. May you be free from animosity and hatred. May to yourself. Now you think of another person you might have a challenge with. You can identify with that person. It could be a friend, it could be family, but it could also somebody you have difficulty with. You feel for that person and you say, may I be safe from inner and outer harm. May I be happy and content. May I be healthy and strong. May I live with ease and well-being. May whatever blocks my heart be dissolved. May I know joy and freedom. May I have food, shelter, and good care. May I be free from animosity and hatred. May I know peace. May I be a good friend to myself. And now, as you evoked your inner kindness, your own kindness, and kindness towards another person, you can even largen your heart more. May all beings be safe from inner and outer harm. May all beings be healthy and strong. May all beings be happy and content. May all beings live with ease and well-being. May all beings live with an open heart. May all beings know joy and freedom. May all beings have food, shelter, and good care. May all beings be free from animosity and hatred. May all beings know peace. May all beings be good friends to each other. Please remember, be kind to yourself, be kind to others, and be kind to all life on our Mother Earth. Please stand for the hymn.
Yes, if everyone can please remain standing. Benediction comes from the Latin to spread, to speak well, or the good words, and are a final blessing on the community. I'm so honored today to give you all this final blessing. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, in the name of God, most compassionate, most merciful. Dear God, we thank you for the gathering to commemorate the class of 2021 who have demonstrated resilience and strength during these very trying times, but who are also human and who have struggled like anyone else. Dear Lord, Lord of the worlds, give our graduates patience, guidance, inner peace, and wisdom. For people you may have lost this year due to the pandemic, may you find ease, and may you find ease in your suffering. Dear God, bless the parents, caregivers, and beloved friends and family, either biological or chosen, who have supported our graduates financially, emotionally, spiritually, mentally, and in countless other ways that we cannot enumerate. May we take the time to thank our professors, administrators, and all of those at Bard who have facilitated the class of 2021 to graduate. I ask God to give you all the ability to have righteous indignation at injustice, oppression, and exploitation of any people in any part of the world, that you all may work for justice, equality, equity, and ultimately peace. Let us understand and actualize that our liberation is bound with the liberation of others. And let us work together for the common good of all, especially for those less advantaged than ourselves. May you graduates use your intellect and Bard education for the well-being of all. May you have fulfilling careers or other life paths that you choose, always striving to work for the greater good. May you be able to experience joy, love, happiness, but also other discomforts in life, always remaining hopeful, even when things get tough, and they will, as we've seen in 2020 and 2021. And finally, may you have compassion, kindness, tenderness, and mercy towards one another and towards yourselves. Lord, you are the truth, and from you comes the truth. Hear our prayer, Sadaqallahu al-Azim, and the words of God are truthful. Thank you. Please remain standing.
Amen.